Chapter 5 My Quest. Like others who grew up in the 50s and 60s, I experienced some amazing things. The baby boomers enjoyed great prosperity after the Second World War, and we owe a big thank you to the millions of parents and grandparents who gave their lives for our freedom. It was a time that we are unlikely to see again. Not only was our population booming, but so was everything else. From the corner store to the department store, from the bicycle to the airplane, from the movies to television, our daily lives were changing constantly. It was the beginning of the age of consumption, and more people owned homes, cars, TV sets, and other conveniences unknown to our ancestors. It didn't matter who you were or what you'd like to do. You could get a job and a career doing it, from fixing cars to manufacturing the latest automobiles. Technology was on the rise. The automobiles were getting bigger and better. I love cars and have built a few hot rods in my life. Those cars of the 50s and 60s, wow. The shiny chrome, wood, fins, and the roar of the engines. Think of it, gas at only 20 cents a gallon, new highways everywhere. We saw the birth of rock and roll. What a time. White socks, t-shirts, and blue jeans. Then came the 60s and the British invasion with flowered everything. Paisley, hippies, psychedelic music, peace, love, weed, and protesting the Vietnam War. All for you to see on color TV. There were riots, the Kent State shootings by the National Guard, the Chicago 7, and other examples of political unrest. Then there were the assassinations. President John F. Kennedy was struck down in Dallas in 1963. 5 years later, Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy were assassinated within 2 months of each other. Everything seemed to go downhill from there. I joined the U.S. Coast Guard after graduation from high school in the late 1960s. One of the places where I was stationed was Governor's Island in New York Harbor. I had the opportunity to go to Woodstock that summer, but sporting a military haircut, it made me think twice about that. That same summer, America landed on the moon. What a summer it was. I believe that we form opinions and beliefs based on what we experience in life. I'm sure I formed my own belief system because of the time, city, and country I was born in. My education, religious upbringing, and the family that raised me also contributed to my way of thinking. All of these can be good or bad influences in our lives. As I matured, I came to the conclusion that all my beliefs had to be questioned. As I wrote earlier, I saw that I had built my whole world around what I thought was real, and my definition of reality was based on my personal experiences. I remained safe and secure in that world, governed by the things and feelings that pleased me. If we continue to view life from a primarily subjective viewpoint, there's a good chance we will remain in that mindset for the rest of our lives. We all have probably heard that we learn from our own mistakes, but it's also said that those who are smarter will learn from the mistakes of others. To learn from another's mistakes lets us view their experiences from an objective point of view. The observer outside of the situation or event usually has a clearer picture of what really took place. The subject of a car accident can only remember what is taking place as he experienced it. On the other hand, if you witnessed a car accident as an objective observer, you may have a better vantage point and may have the best information about the accident. To get a proper perspective on life, we must not only look at life from our subjective experiences, but also from the objective viewpoint of others. This is why I consider it necessary for us to get input about our who, what, and why from others. Hopefully, good parents do this all the time. Someone from another world who does not stand or fall on what we think about them and tells us the truth from outside our subjective experience could certainly help us. I think that could be what some might refer to as a scientific approach. Therefore, as I began my quest for truth, I was determined not to be ruled by my subjective feelings and experiences, no matter how real they seem to me. I have never met anyone in my life that doesn't let their subjective experience overwhelm or control them. I personally talk to hundreds of people all the time. They don't hesitate to ask, "How are you?" We usually respond, "Okay," And I'm sure many of you might reply, wonderful, fantastic, great, or I couldn't be better. Whether we know it or not, when someone asks us how we are doing, they automatically force us into a subjective experience. When they ask such a question, you normally think that they are genuinely concerned about your condition. We all do this. Now I can understand why we would ask this question if we knew someone has had surgery, been ill, or been in an accident. But many times, just by habit, we ask, how are you? At other times, when asked the same question, you must consider whether they really want to know your current condition. You may hesitate and think of all your aches and pains, or other problems you're having at the moment. You must decide to tell the truth or just say fine. Even if you say fine, your mind may quickly rehearse the possible reply to your real subjective state. I recently developed a genuine response to the question, how are you? Which can bring to mind my current subjective condition. I try not to focus on how I feel. I choose to reply honestly and say, I don't want to think about it, but thanks for asking. I admit this has helped me tremendously because the less I think about the miseries, pain, and suffering that we all experience, the better I feel. Objectively looking at our condition and life on earth may not be the most pleasant way to perceive our existence, but might be the most truthful. As they say, the truth hurts. The problem with viewing life on earth objectively is that we are overly subjectively involved with life on a daily basis. As I rehearsed my past experiences, I couldn't help but notice I viewed almost everything from my subjective viewpoint, which I believe any normal individual cannot help but do. Therefore, my quest was one of seeing things from a new understanding of objective reasoning, which means I was searching for someone outside of what we call the human race. For the first time, I understood it was not necessarily about me, but about all of us, and how we all need an objective truth about ourselves. I tried my best to decipher the facts from the fiction of he said, she said, and they said. I realized that all of my thoughts and what I believed stood or fell were based on the objective reality they were connected to. That is, objective versus subjective. How these two are related to one another can make a world of difference. Let's take the law of gravity. I would imagine we would both agree that this is an objective reality, but only the proper understanding of its law can protect us from a bad subjective experience. There's a very good possibility that early man did not understand the gravitational pull of the Earth at 32 feet per second, nor had any idea of wind or drag resistance. I think early man could have learned the effects of gravity in two different ways, subjectively and or objectively. I imagine early man knew that water was a very soft substance, a liquid. Knowing that, let's say one day a young man wanted to show off his manly attributes to impress a young woman. He climbed high to the top of a waterfall and noted all eyes were upon him, saw his chance to express his fearlessness. He knew that the water was soft, but the misinformed diver, not considering the speed at which he would hit the water, jumped. Mind you, it was not the plunge of a professional diver, but instead began taking on the look of what we call a belly slam. I think you know where this is going. The ones who observed him hitting the water and who heard the loud noise enjoyed it immensely. But to the diver, there was a great surprise. The speed of his fall seemed to get faster and faster, a speed he had never experienced before. That speed caused by gravity somehow made the water much harder than the substance he drank and bathed in. Now with the force of gravity, it gave the diver a different subjective experience and an objective reality at the same time. The observers watching the dive were able to tell what they saw and heard, but their only subjective experience was in dragging the diver out of the water. He was okay, and now he could tell others what he learned the hard way. The observers can relate the same story, but without the pain incurred by the diver. That same gravity can be a great friend. For example, consider in a house fire. The father is outside the smoke and flame-filled house, and his child is inside on the second floor, screaming for help. When the child hears the voice of the dad yelling, "Jump, jump, I'll catch you," the child has to quickly assess the problem and make a split-second decision. There's no other way out, and the heat and smoke are becoming unbearable. The child's subjective experience is not a pleasant one. Neither is the thought of jumping out of the second-story window. Will she be governed by the miserable situation she's in, or focus completely on the objective, her father? By observing her father and believing he can catch her, she jumps. In this case, gravity acted as the force or means of delivering. I believe that father completely understood the law of gravity as a quick way out of the problem. All of us make similar decisions in the same way. I hope you can comprehend the distinction between subjective experiences and objective realities. Most of what we believe today has been formulated by a combination of the objective reality and a subjective experience. I strongly believe we should base our conclusions and decisions primarily on the objective reality. Those who choose the subjective experience as being the objective reality can be totally misled. I began reading and hearing marvelous stories and testimonials of all kinds of people's personal experiences, some good and some bad. I heard about past lives and afterlife experiences of people traveling through tunnels towards a bright light. I heard from people who believed they were visited by angels and ghosts, and of dreams that seemed real. Many also told of tarot card readings, palm readings, and horoscopes. These are all based on their subjective experiences, which neither I nor anyone else can test, even though it was real to them. Some will go to their graves with the belief that their experiences must be true. Just try to tell them these events, happenings, and experiences are not real. You tell them. I'm not going to tell them. I saw that face you just made. I made it too. How in the world can we tell anybody that they didn't have these marvelous experiences? There are people who hear voices, see visions, and experience marvelous messages of things to come. They ought to have the right to express what happened to them. Some of these people have been ridiculed, mistreated, cast out as heretics, beaten, and even killed. There are martyrs in all faiths. Jews, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, and even atheists have been killed because of their experience or beliefs. Yet through acts of these types, we now have most of our major religions. How dare we condemn others because they have different beliefs or another religion than ours? Isn't that the same as saying we alone have the truth, and everybody that doesn't see it our way is less of a person, stupid, uneducated, unenlightened, or weak? No way am I trying to make anyone think they're wrong in what they believe and that I'm right. How foolish that would be. We are all wrong in one way or another. All of us have a free will, and we must truly respect the belief of others. All must be free to believe what they want, without being persecuted by others who hold a different belief. We must be very careful not to look down on others while we do our own thing, like Frank Sinatra saying, "I did it my way," or like the Animals song, "It's my life and I'll do what I want." A time came when I began to go my own way, far removed from the religion I was raised in. I thought I was living a life free from any sky gods, and I began to enjoy my freedom. I answered to no one. It felt good. I did it. I would even take the law into my own hands if someone crossed me. I honestly felt a guiding light shining on me. All the self-edifying things I did were okay, but I'm too ashamed to talk about most of them. I was on a great subjective experience. I wanted to live life to the fullest. I had no hope for life after death. And if there were a hell, I didn't care if I was going there. Life was good. I was on a great high. Then about 5 years later, I had a thought that I could not get out of my mind. It was popping up every day. It became something I couldn't sidestep. This is what it was. If there is a God or creator, it would be his responsibility to reveal himself to us. After all, if there were a creator or a God, and he didn't want to be found, could anyone ever find him? We also must realize that if a creator or God exists and decided to make himself known clearly and concretely, who would prevent him from doing so?